I'm Clare Stewart, the director of the Sydney Film Festival, and I'm here to talk about the official competition. Official competitions are something that many festivals around the world have, and A-list festivals like Cannes and Venice and Berlin, for example, have a very long tradition in this space. Our competition is a little bit different from those competitions in the sense that it has a set of values attached to it. We are looking for courageous, audacious and cutting-edge films, so it means that the lineup is defined by a different set of values. The official competition has had some really startling winners already in its very short history, and was really marked in the beginning by Steve McQueen winning with Hunger, which I think set the agenda for how the competition would be considered going forward. The following year was won by Nicholas Winding Refn's Bronson, and then Xavier Dolan's Heartbeats. So you can see with those films that each of those is very different in texture, although of course we were quite worried after year two that we might just end up having films about prisoners. As festival director, it's my real privilege to have the choice of the films that go into the official competition, and that's one of the most exhilarating and hard-won battles of the year. When you have these set of values to work with in a curatorial sense, courageous, audacious, cutting edge, they can apply to many different elements of the film or the filmmaking process. So, for example, you have extremely different films, a work like Cairo 678, an extraordinary work about sexual harassment in Egypt, and it follows 3 women and the impact of sexual harassment in their lives. Now, this is really quite a radical work in the context of its own environment, because this is a very unspoken of, taboo subject. So that's very much how it addresses the criteria. And then you can go to something like The Tree of Life by the acclaimed director Terrence Malick, who's been making extraordinary films since Badlands almost 40 years ago. And in Tree of Life, you see the most dense approach to storytelling or narrative that you've ever seen him do. And you're actually moving between these different times and different perspectives in a way that's kind of quite slippery and sometimes hard to hold on to, but takes you into this incredible emotional space. And that's moving between one middle American family in the 50s, the father's played by Brad Pitt, and then his son, years later, played by Sean Penn, who's trying to come to terms with his relationship with his father. And then it also just slides off into these extraordinary sequences about evolution. And it plays this quite complex story between the idea of grace and spirituality on the one hand and nature and evolution on the other.
Guide us to the end of time.
Unless you love, your life will flash by.
Tran Anh Hung, who is the Vietnamese director of films like The Scent of Green Papaya and Siklo, does an extraordinary sort of outsider's take on what is a very famous novel by Japanese author Murakami. And I think that in itself is a really courageous step. He's bringing quite a different sensibility, but he does that really beautifully, and he kind of hones in on the emotional arc. The sort of historical detail about 60s Japan is still very much there, but not to the same degree and with the same kind of precision that it is, I guess, in Murakami's novel. So he's kind of taking a leap with this original text, if you like, and interpreting it in a way that creates its own sort of space whilst still remaining very responsive to that original work.
東京で誰かに会ってるの？その時は私に話してね。好きな人いる？
いるよ。
So the festival kick-starts with an incredibly high-octane film from Joe Wright, who really shifts gear with this new work, Hannah. I mean, he of course is the director of Atonement and Pride and Prejudice, and this is very much a move away from the sort of period drama. It stars Saoirse Ronan as a 16-year-old girl who's being brought up by her father, Eric, played by Eric Bana, in a sort of northern, remote Finnish, very icy landscape, and she's being trained as an assassin. And it's her job to go out after this one target, played by Cate Blanchett. And the way that he treats the film is fascinating because even though it's very much in the genre of an espionage thriller, he weaves fairy tale symbolism and style the whole way through the film. To have that amazing doubling of Eric Bana and Cate Blanchett just really leapt out as an opening night title for me.
My name is Marissa Vaylor. You wanted to speak to me?
It's okay.
I have this rule about closing night. I feel like closing night has to make everyone in the theatre feel good. And if it's a warm and fuzzy feel good, even better. And that's what Mike Mills really achieves with this extraordinary new film, Beginners. It stars Ewan McGregor, who of course was a festival guest for us last year, as a sort of 30-something, slightly directionalist, a graphic designer, coming to terms with the fact that his father, after his mother's death, has come out as gay and simultaneously delivered the news that he's dying of cancer. That makes it sound quite grim, but actually Mike Mills, who has an incredibly playful approach to filmmaking, manages to juggle that story with absolute empathy and comedy the whole way through, and it's really, really charming, and there's just no way that you can leave the cinema without a grin on your face with this film.
Arthur, you're coming to live with me now, okay? That's the bathroom. This is the living room. This is the dining room where people come and eat sometimes. Look, it's lonely out here, so you better learn how to talk with me. This is 2003. This is what the sun looks like, and the stars. This is the president. And this is the sun in 1955, and the stars, and the president. My parents got married in 1955. They had a child, and they stayed married for 44 years until my mother died. 6 months later, my father told me he was gay.
I'm gay.
I remember him wearing a purple sweater when he told me this, but actually he wore a robe.
I'm gay.